Why intelligent people scare society. Have you ever felt out of place because your ideas or abilities seem to set you apart? You're not alone. History is full of thinkers who were misunderstood, feared, or even punished for challenging the status quo. When someone questions long-held beliefs or points out uncomfortable truths, it can stir anxiety and resistance in others. But take heart, every great change in the world began with someone brave enough to think differently. In this script, we'll explore why society often reacts with fear or hostility toward intelligent, visionary people, from the halls of ancient Athens to our modern classrooms and workplaces, and why that reaction is actually a sign of the power of your ideas. In the end, we'll encourage you to embrace your intelligence, trust your convictions, and never be afraid of standing out. Lessons from history. Thinkers who were feared. Throughout history, people with new ideas have often clashed with powerful institutions and fearful minds. Consider Socrates, the famous philosopher of ancient Greece. Socrates asked simple yet profound questions about truth, virtue, and justice, questions that made many Athenians uncomfortable. In Plato's Apology, Socrates recounts how he spent years testing people's knowledge, only to show them their own ignorance. His plainness of speech angered those who pretended to wisdom, so much so that they filled your ears with loud and inveterate slander, and ultimately accused him of corrupting the youth. Socrates observed that others became angry with him instead of themselves when their ignorance was exposed. He even noted that his accusers' hatred is proof that I am speaking the truth. In other words, the hostility he faced was a sign that he was hitting on something important. In the end, Socrates was sentenced to death for his ideas, but his legacy of critical thinking lived on. His story reminds us, when your ideas challenge those around you, some may react by attacking the messenger. But as Socrates discovered, that very resistance can be proof that your message is powerful and true. The astronomer Galileo Galilei offers another example. In the early 17th century, Galileo used his telescope to confirm that the Earth and planets orbit the Sun, a radical idea at odds with church doctrine. His findings threatened the established worldview. People literally feared that he was turning society upside down. In 1633, the Roman Inquisition put Galileo on trial, found him vehemently suspect of heresy, and forced him to recant his views. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest for simply reporting what he saw in the heavens. This shows how those in power sometimes suppress new ideas out of fear. Instead of celebrating that Galileo's evidence confirmed the workings of the universe, authorities punished him for daring to question traditional beliefs. Centuries later, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. became a target simply for advocating equality and justice. King's vision of a future free of racism unsettled many who benefited from the old order. In fact, the FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, labeled King the most dangerous Negro of the future of this nation, going so far as to wiretap him and smear his reputation. Ordinary citizens also felt threatened. Many resisted civil rights leaders out of fear of the social change they represented. King's peaceful yet bold message shows how progressive ideas can seem dangerous to those clinging to the status quo. He famously said that the greatest obstacle to peace and justice is the fear of change. Today we recognize King's courage, but back then many feared what his message implied about their own beliefs and their nation's future. These stories have a common lesson. Visionary thinkers often face resistance because they force society to confront uncomfortable truths or change long-held assumptions. Socrates was executed for questioning, Galileo was silenced for observing, and King was vilified for preaching equality. If your ideas make people uneasy or defensive, remember, you are following in the footsteps of some of history's greatest minds. Their struggles show that it's normal, and even a good sign, for new ideas to be met with suspicion. The psychology behind resistance. Why does this happen? Psychologists have long studied why people react badly to smart, challenging ideas. In simple terms, new ideas can trigger fear and mental discomfort. One reason is cognitive dissonance. This is the uncomfortable tension we feel when new information conflicts with our existing beliefs or self-image. For example, if someone believes, "I'm smart," and then hears someone explain a problem they don't understand, they may feel threatened because it clashes with their self-perception. People subconsciously want their ideas and actions to be consistent. When someone challenges that consistency, it creates psychological discomfort. To reduce this tension, many will resist or deny the new information instead of rethinking their own views. In other words, hearing a smarter person explain something can feel like being forced to admit, "I don't know as much as I thought," and our minds often choose avoidance or hostility over that discomfort. Social conformity also plays a role. Humans are wired to fit in with the group. Experiments from psychology show that even intelligent people often conform to peer pressure. In Solomon Asch's classic studies, about 3/4 of participants gave an obviously wrong answer at least once just to go along with a unanimous group. Asch himself was struck by this. He noted that it is a matter of concern that intelligent, well-meaning people would call white black under social pressure. This reveals how strong the pull of group norms can be. When a new idea comes along, especially in a group setting, people worry about standing out or being judged. They may subconsciously clamp down on those ideas to keep the group feeling safe and normal. Recent neuroscience adds another perspective. Brain imaging studies have found that encountering someone smarter can actually trigger the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and threat detection. In one study, people who felt intellectually inferior showed neural activity similar to a physical pain response. It turns out the phrase, "it hurts my ego," is literal. Seeing superior intelligence lights up our brain's alarm system. We literally feel a pang when our beliefs are challenged by a sharper mind. This reaction is especially strong in group settings, where our social status feels more at risk. So part of what you might face is an unconscious, almost instinctive reaction in others. They aren't always aware of it, but their brains treat your insight like a threat to their worldview. To summarize the psychological dynamics, consider these key factors. 1. Cognitive dissonance. New ideas can clash with what people already believe. If someone's beliefs are threatened, they may reject or attack the new information to avoid the discomfort. 2. Social conformity. We have a deep need to fit in. Asch's famous experiments showed that even very smart people will say the wrong thing to not feel alone. Standing out intellectually can feel like breaking a group pact. Threat response. Neuroscience shows that our brains literally get defensive when faced with superior knowledge. Encountering a smarter person can trigger a fear response as if we're being challenged at a primal level. These dynamics explain a lot. If you've ever been told, "Don't ask why," or "Stop overthinking," it's often because others feel uneasy when your curiosity exposes contradictions or gaps in their worldview. It's not personal, it's human nature. But recognizing these forces can help you understand why some people react negatively, even when you have good intentions. Social, political, and educational gatekeeping. Beyond individual psychology, there are larger forces at play. Throughout history, political and institutional powers have often tried to control or suppress disruptive ideas. The stories of Socrates, Galileo, and King already hint at this. Governments and churches made laws to punish dissent. Today, gatekeepers exist in many forms: education systems, corporations, media, and more that can slow the spread of new thinking. For example, research shows that formal schooling was often designed more to teach obedience than to encourage questioning. One historical study found that public education began as a way to instill social order and obedience, not as a path to liberation. Governments facing social unrest tended to reform schools with a goal of indoctrinating people to accept the status quo. In other words, when the powerful felt threatened, they used schools to calm rebellion by teaching conformity and respect for authority. Even today, standardized curricula and high-stakes testing can emphasize rote learning over creativity and critical thinking. As a result, schools can sometimes discourage students from rocking the boat, while rewarding compliance rather than independent thought. In the political arena, authorities may react defensively to popular new ideas. The same study noted that after periods of protest or upheaval, governments often push patriotic education reforms to quash dissent. For instance, in the United States following recent protests, some officials proposed new history standards aimed at promoting a narrow national narrative, essentially trying to prevent young people from questioning the established story. This illustrates a general principle. When people demand change, those in power sometimes respond by trying to control information or brand new ideas as dangerous. Finally, even in workplaces or peer groups, there can be gatekeeping of creativity. Innovations can be stifled by risk-averse leadership or by cliques who don't want their status challenged. Think of the inventor whose project was cancelled because it seemed too radical, or the student who was told to focus on realistic goals rather than dreaming big. These are modern echoes of the same pattern. Systems often favor stability over disruption, and anyone who threatens the comfortable routine may face pushback. In short, the broader social and institutional context can amplify the fear of intelligence. When you bring new ideas into such environments, you can trigger defensive reactions not just in individuals, but in whole organizations. Again, remember that this resistance is a sign of impact. Systems often only push back against things that could actually change them. The fact that your ideas rattle the cage means they have real power. Embracing your intelligence and standing out. Now that we've seen why society might fear intelligence, let's turn it around. Your unique perspective is a gift, not a burden. The very traits that make you feel isolated can also be your greatest strengths. Every example above, Socrates, Galileo, King, was ultimately vindicated by history. Their bold thinking paved the way for progress. And they all had to overcome fear and doubt along the way. If they were alive today, each might tell you, be proud to think differently. So how do you handle being the smart one in the room? Here are a few reminders. Trust your curiosity. Your desire to understand the world deeply is not a flaw. It's what drives innovation and breakthroughs. When you ask questions or challenge assumptions, you're doing exactly what great minds have done for centuries. Sure, some people will roll their eyes or feel threatened, but others will be inspired. For every critic, there is someone listening who will appreciate your insight. Find your community. Schopenhauer observed that intelligent people often seek out others like them for support. You don't have to go it alone. Seek friends, mentors, or online groups where questioning and learning are encouraged. Sharing ideas in the right environment can give you confidence and make the challenge worthwhile. Choose the right moments. Sometimes it's smart to adapt your delivery. If a group seems very defensive, you might introduce new ideas gently or find common ground first. This doesn't mean hiding your intelligence, but rather being strategic. History shows that even innovators had to pick their moments. Galileo, for instance, initially phrased his findings as a hypothesis to avoid conflict. You can use tact without compromising truth. Learn from rejection. Remember Socrates. When people attacked him, he realized it was because his questions hit the mark. If someone dismisses your idea out of hand, it doesn't mean the idea is wrong. Often it means they aren't ready for it. Keep refining your thinking and looking for allies who are open-minded. Keep growing. Embrace every opportunity to learn, and encourage those around you to learn, too. Education should be about more than memorization. It should empower critical thinking. By striving to think clearly and encouraging others to do the same, you strengthen your resilience. Research shows that challenging but supportive learning environments help overcome the fear of new ideas. Be part of creating those environments. Remember, the world needs your intelligence. Think about the achievements unlocked by people who weren't afraid to stand out. The same qualities that ruffle some feathers, creativity, insight, independence, are exactly what drive progress. If no one ever challenged the way things are done, we'd never have electricity, vaccines, internet, or equality. Each of those breakthroughs was scoffed at first. Call to action. Your voice matters. As we wrap up, hear this message. Value your own intelligence. Embrace the fact that you think deeply or differently. Your mind is a gift, not a curse. Don't shy away from asking questions, exploring new ideas, or sharing your insights, even if it feels risky. Great thinkers throughout history risked much to speak their truth. They often faced backlash, but they also left a legacy that changed the world for the better. So stand tall and speak up. When you feel others pulling you down for shining too brightly, remember that light exposes shadows, and sometimes people like to keep those shadows hidden. Stay patient with them, but stay true to yourself. Surround yourself with those who celebrate curiosity, and be the kind of person who turns challenge into opportunity. Take action today. Read a bold book, write down a radical idea, or start a conversation that stretches boundaries. Cherish your unique perspective, and use it to build knowledge and understanding. Encourage others to think for themselves, too. The more we all learn to question and grow, the less scary intelligence will seem to society as a whole. In conclusion, you were not born to blend in. Intelligent, questioning minds are the engine of progress. Whenever you feel isolated or afraid of standing out, remember the giants on whose shoulders you stand. Socrates, Galileo, King. They all trusted their wisdom despite fear and opposition, and so should you. Embrace your brilliance, nurture your critical thinking, and let your ideas shine. The world is waiting for what you have to offer. Stay courageous, stay curious, and keep changing the world, one thought at a time. Now go forth and value your own intelligence. The future needs it. Sources: this script is informed by historical accounts and psychological research. For example, Plato's Apology recounts Socrates' trial. The Galileo affair is documented in historical archives. The FBI's view of Martin Luther King Jr. is noted in historical records. Psychologists have studied cognitive dissonance and conformity. Modern studies even show that our brains treat superior intelligence as a social threat. And educational historians note that schooling systems were often created to enforce conformity. These findings and examples remind us that feeling different can be a powerful asset. Embrace it and keep learning.